When we're young, we can't imagine what it's going to be like to be 40, 50, 60, 70. We grow up with this fear of getting old. I'm 54 and I have never felt so good. And when you get to a certain point in life, midlife, mostly, I think this happens when you turn 50, that's when so many things change. And even in your 40s, these changes can start to happen. So if you are a person who is already worried about the future, what it's going to be like to be old, this video is for you, because I want to talk about all of the great things that happen when you get old. And old in my books, I don't consider myself old. I'm 54. I think that I'm in my prime, but to a lot of people, the number 50 is the cutting point where all of a sudden it's all over, game ends, life is over, there's no more fun, but it couldn't be anything more than the opposite of that. So today I want to talk about the top 8 reasons why being old is the best times of your life and that there's so much to look forward to. I think the biggest thing and the number one point is that you finally have the opportunity to put yourself first. For many people that are in midlife, their kids are already grown up, or they're sort of on the cusp of growing up. My kids are 18 and 21, so technically grown up, they're still living at home, but they don't need me as much. I'm not spending my time driving all over the place to soccer, swimming, dance, piano, and they are self-sufficient for the most part. So that has given me a lot more time where I can just focus on myself. And I decided when I was 50, actually, sort of some light bulb went off, and I thought I wasn't happy with the way I was living, as far as I wasn't taking care of my own health, fitness. I was always giving up my time to everyone else. I decided to make some changes, and I went through a midlife transformation. I'll share that video here. And I started with making a career change. I started with losing weight. Mostly it was about making myself a priority. And I went on a mission. I did lose 30 pounds, and I really focused on myself. And that is the beauty of being midlife and having your kids grown up, is that now is the time to make yourself the priority, and you can start doing so many things that you put aside and didn't have time for. You can reconnect with those friends, start going back into those hobbies that you loved, making yourself number one. The second greatest thing about getting older is that you stop caring about what everybody else thinks. I don't care what anyone has to say anymore. I don't care what they think of me. I've paid my dues in life. I've dealt with conflicts at work, conflicts with friends, conflicts with the kids' friends and parents. You name it, I've dealt with it. And I've come to that point in life where I don't care anymore what anyone else has to say, what their opinions are of me. I used to worry so much about everything. I worried about how I looked, if I said the right thing, did I fit in? And you come to a point in life where all of that stuff doesn't matter. You don't care anymore. It has no bearing on how you make decisions in your life. It has no bearing on what you do, your worth, any of that. So that is another thing with aging, is that you really just don't care anymore about what everybody else's opinions are. The third thing about getting older that's great is that you have an unmatched level of confidence. I have never felt so confident. Once I turned 50, something happened, something changed. Gideon's here with us. I remember when I was a teenager, even in my 20s and 30s, I just had that awkwardness, that feeling of being insecure, wanting validation from others, and not feeling comfortable in my own skin, basically. It's taken so many years of, we go through struggles. We go through a lot of changes. We learn, we grow, we experience things, and that's what really shapes who we are. And it also shapes our confidence. And I've never been more confident as I am now in my 50s. And I think it also ties into the not caring what other people think. Those go kind of hand in hand. So many of the younger generation, they want to grow up fast. They want to have all the things the adults have. They don't want to have to work for it. They want to skip past everything and just get to that point. But you have to go through those stages of life, because that's how you evolve and grow. And I always tell my kids that enjoy the moment that you're in. Don't be in such a hurry to get to the end. Make sure you enjoy the road. Take some side roads. Go on adventures. Don't be in such a hurry to grow up. Because when you get to this point, and I will say, when I did hit 50, it was a bit scary, because you look at that number and you think, okay, I'm already, halfway or even maybe 3/4 of the way through my life. And you start looking at the clock and counting down. But eventually you get past that part of worry and worrying about, the time is running out. And that's why most people in their midlife stage, they do make a lot of changes, because that's something that they're thinking about. They're thinking that time's running out. That's why a lot of people retire early. They start traveling more. They start making a lot of changes in their life. But we can never be in a hurry to get to a point later on. We have to enjoy where we are at the moment. Another really great point is that when you're in midlife, chances are for most people, you have a lot more financial stability. You've spent years saving. You have more investments, you have retirement savings, you have invested either in property, you have your home equity, you've established a lot more financial security, you've maybe paid off debt as well, you're not carrying as much debt, and you've got higher income. So that is one thing too that I find it feels so good to be at a point in our lives, in midlife, where you're not worried so much about money anymore. You've paid a lot of things off. You have all this additional funds that are now available for you to go and enjoy life. So you can travel more, go to the theater, go here, go there. Buy those pair of shoes if you want them. Buy that fancy purse if you want it. Now, I will say though, when you get to midlife, you start spending your money a lot less on things that don't really matter. And I, over the years, have changed my spending habits, and I'll share a video here about that, about what I now spend my money on in my 50s. Because now more often, I'm spending money on experiences and not things, because things just build up. And then eventually when you want to sell your home, you've got all this junk that you need to get rid of. And unless you have kids that want your stuff, and most of the time they don't, you've got all this stuff that you eventually have to get rid of. And I think too, in midlife, all those material things do not matter anymore. You want to be out, you want to enjoy a nice dinner out, you want to go to the theater, to a show, on a vacation. Experiences matter more than all of those things when you get to this age. And it's such a great feeling to have the money to do those things. The fifth thing that I've noticed in getting older is that we develop a better sense of setting clear boundaries. And we get really good at it. Because above all, we want to protect our peace. We don't want any drama. We don't want any nonsense. We want our rest. And at this point, most of us don't really want to be going out all the time anymore. I love just having an evening at home, sitting out in the backyard, relaxing, watching a movie, coloring, doing my adult coloring, reading a book. I love to have my personal time, or just time with my family or my husband. But also, I do still enjoy going out. But what's great is that we've developed this, tactic of setting those clear boundaries and making sure that no one interferes with our peace. And I find that, I get a little bit of, like, my social battery is run out. I'll make plans with friends and then cancel, which I shouldn't do because I need to get out. But also, I am happy that I have the option of when I want to go out. I no longer feel like I was in my 20s or 30s where, oh no, if I don't go out, I'm not going to have friends anymore, or they're not going to invite me. At this point, I don't care. If you don't want to invite me, don't invite me. I'm not really going to be bothered by it. So it's great to have that ability to now not care and to set those boundaries. And, in addition to your friends and going out, setting boundaries with family members. That's another thing, because a lot of drama comes from your own family. And that drama is what brings you down and ruins your peace. And I come from a family of low effort individuals. And I have a mother who has a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And I'll share a video here also about how I handle my low effort family. So I have put a lot of boundaries in place over the years and limited my time with my family, my extended family, because they do nothing but cause me stress and anxiety. And I don't want to have any of that drama in my life. And yes, people say that you have to, mend fences, keep the peace with your family, but who says? Who says that you have to put up with all of that nonsense and all of that drama that does nothing but bring stress to your life? So if you're comfortable setting boundaries and limiting the family's access, then more power to you. It's okay, and you should be allowed to do that. The sixth point is that we no longer care about the number of friends we have. We focus more on the quality of friends. And over the years, I found I put up with a lot of stuff from a lot of people. And in your 20s and 30s, maybe even in your 40s, you're so worried about just having friends. You think everyone else has a huge group of friends, and if you don't have a huge group, you're a loser of some kind. And you put up with people's nonsense just to make sure that you had friends. But as we get older, we care less and less about the number of people that we have in our lives because we just want peace. A lot of friendships have become situational or just self-serving, I guess. They're just people that are in your life for a different stage, or they're people in your life just because they need you for something, or maybe you need them for something. And I have different friends, and I have those friends that I call on for certain things. I know, this one person, I'll call on that person if I just want to go for coffee and dessert and catch up. I have other friends where maybe we go to different events. But these are not friends that I confide in all the time, that we spend a lot of time together. They're more of friend acquaintances, I guess we'll say. I have one person that I confide in wholeheartedly, and that is it. And I think that those days of having those close friendships are long gone, that so many people are in the same boat. Either they don't have friends or they just have the odd person that they consider to be an acquaintance. And I think too, as we get older, we just do not want any more drama. It's so much work to have friends, and we're caring more about the quality of people in our lives and not the quantity. And that is also something that's very reassuring and a bit of a relief at this point, that we don't have to worry about friends anymore. Either you have them or you don't, and if you don't, oh well. If you do, great. But I think we've learned to create lives for ourselves that include either our spouses and our family or just doing things alone. And that's okay. All right, we're getting close. We are at number 7, and that is, I had to make a list because I have a terrible memory, that we do appreciate the ordinary moments more now. And I think, again, everything kind of ties back to wanting to have peace and less drama. And we're no longer worried about running the roads every night of the week, going out to parties and events. And again, I do enjoy doing those things, but in moderation. I love just being home, sitting in my backyard, reading a book, just sitting in the back on one of the lawn chairs, looking at the trees, listening to the sounds, getting up in the morning and just going for a nature walk, sitting around, having a coffee, all of the simple things that bring peace to your life. We start to slow down a bit, and those small little moments, those are the things that we cherish and that we put more value into. I've saved the best for last, at least the best that I think. So we're at number 8, and I think that at this point in life, many of us could care less about our jobs. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually really love my job. It's the best job that I've had in my career. I've worked at the same place for 26 years, and I did make a big career change. I've been in the same role for 19 years, and 2-3 years ago, I made a career change, which was scary because we get a bit stale once we've been working in the same place for a long time and when we get to this age. But also, I think, I love that job, but I also don't care as much about work. And, I do my absolute best at that job. I do have really strong work ethics, but if I lost my job tomorrow, I really wouldn't care. And not everyone can say that because not everyone is financially ready for something like that. But I think I would be at the point where I would make it work. I really wouldn't even care. I have kids to put through university still, but it just wouldn't be the end of the world. And I think when you're in your 20s and 30s and even 40s, you've got huge mortgages, you've got to pay for daycare and all these other expenses. You live with that fear maybe that if you lost your job tomorrow, you'd be out on the street. So there is that, bit of calm that you have when you get to this point in your 50s, and just this reassurance that life is going to be okay. So your job is not that important anymore. And changing that mindset about work is so important. And I'll share another video here. I'm going to become the queen of sharing videos that I did recently, talking about how you can quietly quit from work. And it's more about changing your mindset. Everything, I think, when we get to our 50s is about mindset. And I hope that some of this video has resonated with all of you. And the point is that there's nothing to fear about getting older. But I think also when we get to our 50s, we really have to focus on prioritizing our health so that we make it to that point. And another thing too that I should have mentioned is that when we get to this age, we are more in tune with our body. We notice everything, at least I do. I'm very in tune with, my hormone levels. I'm in tune with my weight, obviously, with most women. I'm in tune with my sleep. And when anything is different, I notice it immediately. For instance, last night, I got up about 4 times to go pee last night. And that hasn't happened for a long time. So then I start thinking, okay, what changed? What happened yesterday? So that's my point, is that when something is off, we immediately notice it. And that's another great thing. I don't remember anything in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, if I would notice anything, if anything was happening. So we just become more in tune with ourselves, our lives, what we want for ourselves. So don't be afraid of getting older. There's so much to offer when we get to this point in life. There's just so much happiness, so much peace. I think peace is the biggest thing. So if you made it this far to the very end, thank you so much. I appreciate that you're here. Let me know in the comments that you're here, where you're from, if you have anything to add to the video. And until next time, bye for now.